I remember the sound of the envelope tearing. It was thin, corporate white, with a bright pink border. Something cheerful, meant to be funny. I didn't think much of it at first. It was the Friday before Mother's Day, and Trevor, my boss, was making his usual rounds with that smug grin, handing out cards like a game show host. He always played up the office family vibe, though everyone knew he was the kind of man who smiled with his teeth, not his eyes. He handed me mine last. "For our office, Mom," he said with a wink. "You especially deserve this one." People were watching. Some laughed already, as if they knew the punchline before I even opened it. I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out the card. It had a cartoon on the front, a tired-looking woman surrounded by paperwork and spilled coffee. Inside, in bold black print, it read, "To the office mom, who never had a real man." The laughter hit immediately, loud, unfiltered. A few people clapped. One guy whistled, and I just smiled. That kind of smile you wear like armor. That smile you give when your body is still, but your chest is burning. I looked up, made eye contact with no one, and tucked the card into my desk drawer without a word. Then I turned back to my screen and kept typing. They laughed harder for a second, like they thought I was being a good sport. But inside, I was humiliated. Not because I cared what Trevor thought, not because of the joke itself, but because everyone laughed. Every single person, even the ones who used to eat lunch with me, even the women. No one said, "Hey, that's out of line." No one said anything. And that silence, that hurt worse than the card. You should probably know a few things about me. My name's Alira James. I'm 42, a single mom. Been working at this insurance firm for 8 years. I've never been late, never taken more than 3 sick days, and I bring in some of the highest client satisfaction scores in the region. I'm not flashy. I'm not loud. I don't go to happy hour or wear heels that click. I just do my job, and I do it well. People call me the dependable one, sometimes the office mom, like it's a compliment. But it's just another way of saying I make things easier for everyone else, while expecting nothing in return. And I've learned that when you're that person, reliable, patient, quiet, people think they can disrespect you without consequence. But what they don't realize is, I remember everything. The night I got home late, my son Liam was already on the couch with his homework. He looked up and gave me this lazy grin that melted everything heavy off my shoulders. "Long day?" he asked. I wanted to say your mom's dignity got served on a silver tray today, but I just nodded. "You could say that." He made tea for me, sat with me, didn't pry, just stayed close. That's who he is. 17, wise beyond his years, always watching. After he went to bed, I stared at the card again. I had pulled it out of my purse without even meaning to. I looked at the ink, the smugness behind it, the careless laughter it sparked. And then I thought about something my Uncle Reggie once told me. Dignity is heavy. Only a few can carry it for long. But when you do, people remember. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to lash out. I wasn't going to cry in a bathroom stall or report it to HR, only to get a condescending email about appropriate humor in the workplace. I was going to keep working, but I would do it sharper, with my eyes wide open, and I would wait. Because sometimes the best response isn't a clapback, it's a promotion. People always say your workplace isn't supposed to be personal, but when you spend more time with your coworkers than your own family, it becomes personal, whether you want it to or not. I work at Monarch Life, a mid-size insurance firm in the quieter suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. Not flashy, not fancy, gray cubicles, coffee that tastes like burnt wood, and one break room microwave that sings like a dying robot. It's a typical office. Some people come here to climb, others just coast. Me? I came to survive. I started 8 years ago as a temp, answering phones and filing claims. It was supposed to be a 6-month gig to hold me over after my divorce. My son, Liam, was 9 at the time and starting to ask questions I wasn't ready to answer, like, "Why doesn't Dad come around anymore?" And "Are you happy?" Back then, I didn't know what happiness looked like. But I knew what stability was. I knew what rent costs and what medical bills look like when your kid gets pneumonia in the middle of December. So I stayed, and I worked hard. Eventually, they offered me a permanent spot, then a small promotion, then a raise. But no matter how long I've been here or how much I've done, I've never really been seen. I'm the one who remembers birthdays. I refill the paper in the printer. I order cakes when someone gets promoted and organize cards when someone's dog dies. They call me the office mom, and I let them. Because I've learned that being kind doesn't mean being weak. And being invisible? Sometimes that's power in disguise. My boss, Trevor Miles, doesn't see it that way, though. He's been with the company since the late 90s. Still thinks wearing a Bluetooth headset clipped to his ear makes him look important. He loves golf metaphors, hates being questioned, and has a habit of leaning over your desk just a little too close when he talks. He treats the office like it's a locker room. If you can't take a joke, you're labeled sensitive. If you do your job well but don't play into his ego, you're cold. If you don't laugh at his borderline comments, you're no fun. I learned to navigate him the way you'd walk across a frozen pond, quietly, carefully, always with your weight spread evenly just in case it cracks. My coworkers? They're not bad people, most of them anyway. There's Amanda, 2 desks down, early 30s, always chewing gum and gossiping, but she once brought soup when I had a cold. Jay, from IT, who has 2 kids and plays bass in a dad band, he's kind, but when the card situation happened, he looked at his shoes. Then there are the others, those who float through the day, keeping their heads down, clocking in and out, laughter ready on demand for anyone higher up. Not cruel, just comfortable. Real support system waits for me at home. My son Liam is my world. 17, high school senior, barista on weekends, obsessed with indie films and ramen noodles. He's got this calm energy that makes me feel safe even when I'm the one paying the bills. He notices things, like when I skip dinner because I'm too tired, or when I change the subject too fast. The night after the card incident, he didn't ask what happened. He just handed me a cup of tea and said, "I'm proud of you, Mom, even when you're quiet." And then there's Gwen, my mother. She lives on the other side of town, still bakes casseroles, and still believes in writing checks for everything. She always tells me, "Let people talk. The ones worth knowing will listen without words." And Uncle Reggie, he's not my real uncle, just my dad's oldest friend. He's the only man who's ever truly seen me. He calls every Sunday like clockwork and says things like, "Keep your chin up. The storm don't last forever." He worked the line at a factory for 30 years. He knows what it means to be overlooked. So yeah, when I say I'm not surprised by what happened that Friday, I mean it. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Because no matter how strong you are, no matter how thick your skin gets over the years, being laughed at by people who smile in your face still cuts deep. What they didn't know, though, what none of them saw coming, was that while they were laughing, I was paying attention, and I was about to make every single one of them remember my name. After that card, things didn't change, at least not on the surface. Trevor still strolled through the office like he owned it. People still laughed a little too hard at his jokes. I still brought the coffee filters when they ran out and refilled the paper in the copier when no one else did. But something shifted inside me. I stopped trying to belong. That card wasn't just a joke. It was a spotlight, a way of saying, "We see you, but not as a person. Just as a joke we know won't talk back." And the worst part? They were right. I didn't talk back. I didn't report it. I didn't call HR. I kept working, kept my head down, kept moving. But this time, I was watching. And what I saw? Trevor was slipping. He was late on reports, made careless errors, and passed blame like a hot potato. More than once, I had to fix his numbers before they went up the chain. Once he deleted a correction I made to his quarterly budget sheet, and then snapped at me in front of a client when things didn't add up. But I had receipts. I always kept copies. The others? They noticed, too. Not openly. But I saw how Amanda's smile faded faster when he walked past. How Jay in IT started saying, "I'll email you," instead of stopping by. How even the receptionist, Tasha, stopped laughing at his dumb Bluetooth jokes. Something was rotting in the middle of the office, and nobody wanted to be near the smell. Around that same time, the rumors started. Whispers in the break room, Slack messages with half-finished sentences. Did you hear they're restructuring upper management? Apparently corporate's flying someone in from Chicago. Trevor's name came up in the audit. Might be some financial inconsistencies. No one said anything directly, but the energy shifted. You could feel the tension tighten around the cubicles like a rubber band about to snap. And me? I stayed late, not to prove a point, not to get praise, but because I was preparing. I started quietly reviewing our department's numbers, cross-checking Trevor's edits, making note of every red flag I'd ignored for years, client complaints he handled off the record, missing reimbursements, invoices that didn't line up. I created folders, labels, dates. I didn't plan to use them, but I had them. At home, Liam noticed. "You working overtime again?" he asked one night, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Not really, just double-checking a few things." He studied me like he always did, like he was trying to understand a language I wasn't ready to speak. "You're acting different," he said. "Not bad different, just focused." I smiled and handed him a bowl of soup. Let's call it paying attention. The breaking point came quietly. A week before corporate's rumored visit, Trevor called a team meeting. He stood in front of the projector with his usual cocky swagger and started assigning credit for a client account I had salvaged. He didn't mention my name once, not once, and no one corrected him. That night, I stayed in the office until 9:30 p.m. I pulled the full email chain from that project, every communication, every revision, every note I'd made that had turned a $3,000 loss into a $28,000 annual account. I printed it all, made a packet, labeled it, filed it. Then I locked it in my drawer and went home. Not angry, not bitter, just ready. People say silence is weakness, that if you don't fight back, you're letting them win. But they don't understand what kind of power lives in restraint, in the stillness between humiliation and revenge. I wasn't staying quiet because I had no voice. I was staying quiet because I was building one. By the time corporate announced their visit, everyone was tense. Even Trevor started wearing ties again, coming in early, shaking hands like a politician. But it was too late for him, because I had been invisible long enough to see everything. And what they all missed in their scrambling, their whispering, their panicking, was that I wasn't scrambling at all. I was waiting. And when the moment came, when everything tipped, I wasn't just prepared. I was unshakable. There's a certain calm that comes after humiliation. Not peace, exactly, but a clarity. Like when the fog lifts and you can finally see the path you didn't know you were walking all along. That's where I found myself. Calm, focused, watching. After the Mother's Day card incident, I stopped hoping for fairness. I stopped wishing for respect from people who confused my silence with submission. I wasn't chasing dignity anymore. I was owning it. So while Trevor strutted around the office pretending to be indispensable, I was preparing for the day corporate finally turned their gaze on our quiet little branch. And I wasn't alone in feeling the shift. People were nervous. You could tell by the way the laughter died quicker, the way Slack conversations dried up, the way folks started actually locking their screens when they got up from their desks. I didn't feed the gossip. I didn't play detective or try to uncover anything. I already had everything I needed. Each night, after Liam went to sleep, I stayed up for another hour. Not just doing work, but studying it. I reviewed financial reports filtered through outdated client feedback and pulled together data I'd once assumed no one cared about. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was building a narrative, a quiet, undeniable story about who was really keeping that branch alive. Every number I corrected, every mistake I fixed behind the scenes, every quiet contribution that was never credited, I had all of it. Documented, stamped, time-stamped. Then came the email. Subject line, Regional Leadership Visit, May 12th. It was from corporate, formal, cold, the kind of email that makes your stomach tighten, even if you haven't done anything wrong. The moment I saw it, I knew this was it. Trevor went into overdrive. He started calling last-minute meetings, passing out new strategic goals, and snapping at people for things he'd ignored for years. His desperation was showing, and for the first time, everyone could see it. I didn't flinch. In fact, I did something no one expected. I started leading, quietly. Amanda forgot how to pull a report one morning. Trevor barked at her in front of everyone. I walked over after he left and said, "Here. It's just this filter setting, see?" She looked at me like I was a stranger. Why didn't you take credit for the Jackson account? That was all you, wasn't it? I smiled. Credit's loud. Proof is louder. By the time the day of the visit arrived, I had prepped my team, without ever announcing myself as a leader. I helped Tasha at the front desk clean up the welcome materials. I coached Jay on how to present the back-end systems more clearly. I quietly reorganized the monthly metrics board so that the actual numbers spoke for themselves, and not Trevor's cherry-picked versions. Trevor had no idea what was coming. He was too busy trying to polish a mess that had been rotting under his feet for years. That morning, I wore navy slacks and a buttoned blouse. Nothing flashy, just sharp enough to say, I'm here and I'm not afraid of being seen. At 9:03 a.m., the conference room door opened. A tall, composed man in a tailored gray suit walked in, flanked by two assistants, Micah Rollins, early 30s, the new regional director. He looked around with quiet precision, like someone who had already done his homework and was now just confirming what he knew. Trevor puffed up immediately, hand outstretched. Trevor Miles, branch manager, let me give you the tour. Micah held up a hand, calm, sharp. I'll be speaking with Alira James first. You could hear a pin drop. Amanda's eyes widened. Jay blinked twice. Trevor froze, mid-smile, like someone had yanked the batteries out of his spine. And me? I stood, not fast, not flustered, just steady. I picked up the file I'd prepared, every correction, every contribution, every overlooked success, and walked past Trevor without a word. In that moment, I wasn't the office mom. I wasn't the quiet one. I was the woman who had carried that place on her back. And for the first time, everyone finally saw it. The hallway to the executive office was quiet, like the building itself was holding its breath. I walked beside Micah Rollins, the new regional director, while his assistants followed behind, clipboards in hand, eyes sharp but silent. He didn't say much at first, just a simple, "Thank you for meeting with me," and a glance that said he already knew more than he was letting on. We stepped into the glass-walled meeting room. He closed the door behind us. No cameras, no eyes, just a long oak table between us and 8 years of silence I was about to break. I sat down and slid the folder across the table. "Everything you need to understand this branch," I said. "It's all here." Micah raised an eyebrow, then opened it. He flipped through pages slowly. Quarterly metrics, emails, error corrections, client feedback, internal discrepancies. Side-by-side documentation of every time I fixed something Trevor claimed as his own. He didn't say a word, just nodded slightly with each page, like he was confirming pieces of a puzzle already half complete in his mind. Then he looked up. "How long have you been doing this without recognition?" 8 years. He leaned back. "And why didn't you speak up sooner?" I met his eyes. "Because I was working, not performing. I don't need to be seen to do my job, but I need to be respected to stay." That landed. He nodded once. Then he said the thing that changed everything. "Alira, we've been watching this branch for months. Anonymous client complaints, budget inconsistencies, personnel issues. And your name came up, repeatedly, not in complaints, in quiet praise." He tapped the folder. "This confirms what I already suspected. Trevor's time here is over." My breath caught, not from surprise, but from validation, from the sound of truth finally catching up to silence. Micah continued, "We're restructuring, and we need someone who doesn't just do the job, but who knows the job, who has the respect of the team, even if they haven't said it out loud yet." He looked at me, steady and direct. "You run this now." The room didn't spin. My heart didn't race. It just felt still, like everything I'd carried for years had finally been set down. Micah stood, shook my hand, and said, "We'll make this official by next week. Expect a formal offer and a new title. Interim branch director." He smiled, not a corporate smile, a real one. "You earned this." Word spread fast. Before I even got back to my desk, Amanda messaged me. "Wait, did I just hear what I think I heard?" Jay came by a few minutes later. "Alira, I should have said something about the card, about everything. I'm sorry." I just nodded. "It's handled." Trevor was called into a private meeting that same afternoon. When he emerged, his face was pale, his usual swagger gone. He didn't look at me, didn't speak, just packed his things quietly while the rest of the office found reasons to suddenly be very busy. The same people who had laughed at me now couldn't meet my eyes, but I wasn't angry. I didn't need revenge. I had my dignity, and now I had authority to match it. I gathered my things and stepped into the director's office for the first time, not as a guest, not as a placeholder, but as the one in charge. I closed the door behind me, sat at the desk, let my fingers trace the grain of the wood. The seat was still warm. I looked out through the glass walls at the people who used to overlook me, and I smiled, not the forced kind, not the armor, a real one. That evening, I got home later than usual. Liam was in the kitchen, microwaving leftover pasta. He turned and said, "So, you look different." "Do I?" He grinned. "You look like someone who stopped asking for permission." I hugged him, tighter than usual. "They finally saw me, baby." He just nodded, proud. "They're late." The Monday after Trevor left, the office felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just lighter. Like someone had finally opened a window that had been sealed shut for years. Nobody said his name, not directly, but everyone felt his absence. I didn't rearrange everything overnight. I didn't bark out new rules or change the paint color in the conference room. I just walked in like I always did, on time, steady, present, and got to work. The only difference now, people were watching. But this time, not because they were waiting for me to slip or laugh behind my back. They were paying attention, listening, because the woman they thought would always stay in the background had stepped into the spotlight without ever asking for it. There were small moments that told me the shift was real. Amanda brought in donuts the first Friday of my leadership and quietly left them on my desk with a sticky note that read, "Thank you for not quitting and for showing us what quiet strength looks like." Jay asked if I'd be open to weekly process improvement meetings. He said, "We want to do things right now, not just fast." Even Tasha from the front desk started asking for career advice, not because I demanded respect, but because I'd earned it long before I ever had a title. Outside the office, things were quieter. I still had dinner with Liam every night, still folded laundry during his film rants and quizzed him for finals while he rolled his eyes and smiled. But one night, he came into my room with a printout in his hand, a college acceptance letter. "I got in," he said, eyes wide. "Full scholarship, marketing and media." I stared at the paper, then at him, my baby, the same boy who used to fall asleep on my lap during conference calls, the same boy who hugged me the night I cried alone in the bathroom after losing a bonus to someone less qualified. And now, he was leaving, spreading his wings, flying with a confidence I hadn't had at his age. "You did it," I whispered. He hugged me. We did. And that weekend, I went to see my mom, Gwen, who was busy icing lemon bars in her tiny yellow kitchen. I told her everything, the card, the silence, the promotion. She didn't flinch, just smiled that half smile she gives when she knows something before you do. "I told you," she said, tapping my wrist with a powdered sugar finger. "Let people talk. Truth doesn't need a microphone." Later that night, I sat outside on the porch with Uncle Reggie. He poured us each a glass of sweet tea and said nothing for a while, just stared out into the dark. Then, in his usual gravel voice, he said, "Sometimes the mountain moves, and sometimes the woman becomes the mountain." I didn't say a word. I just smiled and leaned back, letting his words settle like they always did. People often think power is about volume, the loudest voice, the boldest presence, the person who walks in and takes up space like they're entitled to it. But I've learned that real power, quiet power, doesn't have to ask for permission. It doesn't need validation or applause. It shows up every day. It does the work. It listens. It learns. And when the moment comes, it doesn't explode. It rises. I kept the Mother's Day card. Not because I'm sentimental, but because it reminds me of who I used to be and how far I've come. It reminds me that sometimes the world won't hand you your worth. You'll have to show them. Every woman out there who's been overlooked, underestimated, or laughed at for staying composed, I see you. Keep going. Because one day the same people who ignored you will be forced to acknowledge you. And when they do, smile. Then keep working. Not for their approval, but for yourself, because you've always been enough. They're just late to the party.
If this story meant something to you, if you've ever been the quiet one in the room, the overlooked one, the one who stayed calm while everyone else got loud, I want you to know you're not alone. And if you felt something while listening, if it reminded you of someone strong in your life, or maybe even yourself, take a second to let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Like this video if it made you feel seen. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of their worth. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. We tell real stories about quiet strength, dignity, and rising up when no one expects you to. Because sometimes the best way to change the world is to quietly show them who you really are. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.